Good afternoon. Am I glowing? Because those lights are quite a bit brighter than they usually are. Or is it coming from inside? I just told somebody today the wonderful thing about working at a college is you don't get to be wrong more than a nanosecond. Somebody points it out. Welcome back to all of you. It's good to see you. Hope you had a nice Christmas break. We're able to get some good downtime. I took my older daughter to Germany, so we had a nice break, and it's good to be back. Good to see you. Good to feel the energy of the students. Special welcome also to our extended sites. They're waving back. That's good. Yeah. At least St. Cloud is waving back. So welcome to all of you. And we have a couple of trustees that I've seen. I'd like to just point out. Mary Ives is here with us. Could you stand up, Mary? Mary is the vice chair of the board and will become the chair of the board this summer from Grand Rapids. And I saw David Kiefler. David, where are you? David is a graduate. Mary's also a graduate, but David's a graduate and a businessman in St. Cloud and just began his term on the board. So thank you. Did I miss any other trustees? Okay. I'm sorry, I can't. Sister Susan. Sorry. You are in a huge shadow right there, believe me. And, you know, before I get started with the presentation, we were having food out there because of there's no other way to get you here to listen to me, but also because to thank you for your contributions to the faculty staff campaign this year. In the midst of a very difficult economy, you have contributed $80,000 to the school, half of which has been designated for the science expansion. And I think that we owe you, all of us owe each other a great round of gratitude and applause. So thank you. Be sure to leave no shrimp out there. So I'd like to bring you up to date on a few areas of the college. I'll talk about our spring numbers as we see them, and then I want to share some good news with you on the science expansion and also talk a little bit about the President's Leadership Group and the work that they are doing. Let's start with the numbers, which are really good. You know, the 10-day head count is official, but it's not going to change very much from where it is. And as you can see, we're coming in ahead of our budget. Again, in a difficult economy, this is something we should be very thankful for. And also, I want to point out, if you look at those numbers, that in terms of our overall population, we're 1,971 traditional undergrads and 1,525 graduate, online, and extended. It won't be long before the traditional undergraduate population on our campus will be the minority population, and the growth is going to be in those other sectors. But I feel very good about those numbers. I hope you do. You ought to. If your classes are full, thank you. And we're off to a good start. This should put us on track to have a bottom line this year of about $2.6 million, which is substantially ahead of what we budgeted at $1.1 million. So good work. Let me take a few minutes now and update you on the science project. There are a lot of people who have been involved working on this, but I want to call out three. One is John Lebowski, one of our trustees, who is the CEO of Capital City Partnership down in St. Paul. And John was also the former CEO at Ellerbe Beckett, which is a name you may not be familiar with, but you ought to be. It's an architectural design firm that built Tower Hall, designed Tower Hall. Matter of fact, Tower Hall was their first project. That's a story that Margaret Clark can tell you in more nuance than I can. But John was the former CEO of Ellerbe Beckett, and he has volunteered a lot of Ellerbe Beckett's time to begin some preliminary work, and he's really helped move this science expansion along quite a bit. And the other folks are Larry McGahee, who's been working with the folks from Ellerbe Beckett and with the science faculty and is really helping us to design the expansion to meet the needs of the faculty and the students in science. And also Tom Brecky, obviously, who is helping us make sure this thing actually stands up straight. Just to recall the general issue here, as if I need to, but our science facility is over 40 years old. It was designed for about 800 students. It now serves nearly 3 times that many. We've got a lot of updating that needs to be done. We're bursting at the seams, and expansion of that building has become the college's top priority in terms of the physical plant. We started out with 4 options. Let's call them A, B, C, and D. I'll just show you briefly what they are and report to you where we are in the discussions. Option A was to put the addition at the front of the science building. This is approximately 25,000 square feet of space for biochemistry labs, classrooms, research areas, and faculty offices. Option A was to put it in the front, and where it joined the current building, let's see if we got that pointer, there would be an atrium. Yep, that would be a 2-story atrium with natural light from above, a nice gathering space. Option B was to put it over the parking lot. Don't panic. We got too much parking on campus. We thought we'd take some away. So option B would be a 2-story addition over the current parking lot. It also has an interior atrium, Pat, if you can, yep, a little bit larger than option A. We'll come back. Option C was it was a variation on A. It was to put the addition on the front of science but do it perpendicular, which gave you a lot of natural light down both sides. And option D, which was actually the original thinking a couple years ago when we started fussing with this, that was where we thought it would go. Now, at their retreat in October, the trustees did a good look-see of all 4 options and took out C and D. And if we can just stay with D for a minute, they took that one out for a couple of reasons. One is right across the street is the new memory center. So if we were to put an addition here, you would suddenly have a little Wall Street Canyon as you came on campus. You'd have 2 3-story buildings right next to each other that you'd be driving between. But more substantially, we need to put some exhaust systems on this wing, and as Tom Breckett indelicately says, they sound like jet engines on the roof. And that's very close to the monastery. So we wanted not to put the addition that close to the monastery. So that one came off. Can you go back to C for a minute? Oops, C, yep. The main downside of this one, there's a couple of them. One is it changes the front of science, which is pretty good as it is. And the other one was that it really cuts into that green space in the front of science, which is probably the closest thing we've got to a quad on campus. You know, in warm weather, the students use that a lot for intramurals, and we do at least one college ceremony, the leave-taking ceremony for incoming freshmen and at the beginning of the year. Community uses it for relay for life and so on. So to lose it would be, I think, a real difficult thing. So C came off the table. So that leaves us with A and B. Now these are masked computer-generated drawings. Don't read too much detail into them. It's just until we pick which options, we're not paying a lot of money for the real architectural renderings. But this gives you some idea of what A would look like in terms of its mass. Okay, Joan, what's next? Option B, when you put it over the parking lot. And again, don't get too distracted by those odd skylights. Pat, can you? That's where the atrium would be. So that's, there again is option B with an uncovered, there again, that's that atrium, which we would cover. What do you got next, Joan? I'm not sure. Okay, so what this shows you, option B, is that red outline is the atrium, and I wanted you to see how big it is. Look at it compared to the science auditorium. This is a two-story space larger than the science auditorium. And the P over here is meant to show that we could take the parking from that side and put it over here. What happens to the greenhouse? Well, maybe it gets relocated on the roof over here to help mask some of the exhaust. All this, none of this stuff is nailed down. It's just showing you some of the possibilities. We don't necessarily have to lose the parking. And this, again, don't get too hung up on details, but this gives you some sense of what that internal atrium might look like. It's a substantial space, and one of the main advantages of it, at least from my point of view, is that it gives us more of what we're very short of right now, and that is student union space where students can just hang out. This could be, in effect, another Storm's Den for a few years until we are able to do what is likely to be our next physical plant project, which would be to build a student union. So this would take some of the pressure off. There again, another mass view. Don't get too hung up on the details, but there would be some glass incorporated on that north side. Another view. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a pretty subtle guy, but we're kind of tilting toward B. But let me tell you why. That is, we being most of the folks that are working on it. I started out thinking A was the way to go, as did Lebowski and maybe other people as well, but many of us have come around to B. What's the comparison? Okay, we know it's located in front. A is a little bit less expensive. Yes. We changed the front of science. Again, this is something to think about because the front of science looks pretty good. And if we start monkeying with it, we got to come up with something as good or better. And why do it if it looks good? Some of the most beautiful views on campus are from those lounges on the 3rd floor of science, looking out. Now you'd be looking over a roof with exhaust. And there goes the green space. So there it is again. B, yes, cost a little more. Larger atrium. Front stays the same. Views stay the same. Green space is still there. And I wouldn't have used that word until Brecky did, but now when I walk over to lunch, I'm starting to look at that parking lot and that part of the building and think, man, that is an eyesore. That should be cleaned up. Also, option B takes care of a nagging problem, which is that we're getting some water damage under one of those walls, and this would allow us to reclaim about 3,000 square feet in the existing science building that we could use because it would solve the water problem. There again is the look of option B. Any questions just before I go through what's going to happen next?
Where's the tunnel going to be then?
Did you? Are you trying to be cute? I say that because I wasn't going to talk about it, but one of the things we're toying with is we're going to take a $13 million project and see how expensive we can make it. There may be a possibility of, I swore I wouldn't do this. You asked that question, though. We might be able to put a tunnel from Science to Summers and a tunnel from Tower to Science, but I said maybe. I'm convinced of one thing: no matter what else this administration does, if we build tunnels, we're in the history books. That's something we're looking at. Tom is pricing that out too. It would be an awfully nice thing to do. Another nice thing to do while we're doing construction is to go ahead and gut the chem labs on the second floor, which is not as simple as it sounds because there is asbestos involved. But if we could gut those and then, as we have resources, go back and turn them into classrooms and offices, doing the demolition at the time of the build-out would be a good thing to do as well. Okay, any other questions about options A and B? So what happens now is that we hope to get authorization to proceed at the upcoming February 12th board meeting. We hope to get the board to pass option B and to pass the financing for it. The financing would come from three sources: from fundraising, we've raised almost 3.9 so far, from bonding, and also these bottom lines that we've been running the past few years. We've been taking some of that money and setting it aside so that we can put our own equity into this project. And this is exciting. What we would do is begin construction next spring. And you say, why wait? Well, we need some more time for fundraising, and we need time for actually getting a lot of the specifics of the design in place. I mean, Lebowski is saying this is a good timeline to take this time to do it right. But once we begin in spring of 11, let's say April, it's not only ready for fall of 12, he's saying it could be ready January, February, March of 12. But in any event, we could assume that this thing will be occupied for fall semester of our centennial year, which I think is just really sweet. So unless I'm missing something, this is really going to happen, and it's going to happen in the foreseeable future. Thank you for that applause. That's I'm having a hard time sleeping at night because I'm so excited by this. And the tunnels just kind of put it over, don't they? But Don't count on them. We'll see. But that can be a nice thing to do. Yeah, I know. Anything else on science before I move on? Yes, Sister Donna, is it? Yeah. The question is, what about the biology labs? And is Larry here? My understanding was that we can do work on those without having to bring in construction firms. You know what I mean? That it's a more manageable task. I don't know what the timeline is on that. Can somebody help me? Larry or Tom, do we have? Are we going to address that, Tom? Yeah. As part of this project? No, we'll have to see what we can do. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Yes?
Where will the students be housed during this transition? For the classrooms and stuff that are currently going on?
One of the advantages of B is that it's not intrusive. It's not till the very end that you have to knock a wall down to join them up. So business should be able to go on as usual while the expansion is going up. It shouldn't affect the workings of the current science building. When we take the chem labs, when we gut them, the chemists will already have moved to the new part, so that would just be vacant space. Am I addressing what you're asking? Okay? I can't see so well, so yell if there's anybody I'm missing. All right, third. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Peg. Can you donate for the tunnel? Yes, you can donate for the tunnel. I think Dell has a tunnel hat he's going to pass around before we leave. You want to just put up some tunnels and we'll forget the... All right, the third topic I'd like to talk about for a few minutes is the work that the President's Leadership Group is doing. And I hope that you've heard about this group, because part of what they're doing is, I hope, is bringing ideas to you and bringing ideas from you. But the President's Leadership Group is a group of about 60 faculty and staff department chairs and deans, including also the chair of the faculty assembly and several committee chairs, as well as representatives from our extended campuses. And the group is formed to address some of the concerns you raised in the mission values survey last year. Let's go back over some of those. A request for higher quality communication across the institution, more dialogue in the decision-making process, more visibility of the leadership group, modeling of values and accountability, and better alignment of leadership across the institution to enhance the one college concept. So these are themes that you brought up in the survey, and I think as I hope it's been clear, and I think Collard has done an excellent job saying we're going to act on these and find ways to address them. Well, one of the main ways that we're trying to address these concerns is the formation of this President's Leadership Group, which has several purposes. Support the mission, values, priorities, okay. To help improve communication across the institution. So this is an attempt to do the strategic planning of the institution with a very broad group, and hopefully that will involve, since it involves them, it will also involve you through them. To strengthen the roles and responsibilities of leaders in the institute, to provide leadership development, I mean, actual, to get some expertise. Some of it is in-house. I think we'll be relying on some of our management faculty to help walk through some of the development that we intend to do. This is a big one for me, to help us identify and solve problems that we face. That is, rather than you pointing out the problems and the senior leadership goes and comes back to you and says, here's what we're going to do. If you're pointing out the problems, then let's work together to resolve them. And likewise, help us identify opportunities. This is meant to be much more of a leadership net more broadly, Joan, to provide for the strategic planning process and to help us carry out the strategic. So the group has met as a group 3 times, but they're also broken into, I think, 7 groups, and those groups have met more than 3 times. I don't know how many times, it's up to them. But what we've been working on is an exercise that the President's staff went through last August and that the Board of Trustees went through at their fall retreat. And it is essentially this. It is saying if we look at 3 nationally normed studies, reputable studies, the National Survey of Student Engagement, NSSE, the Collegiate Learning Assessment, and the Mission Values Survey, where we're compared to now, I think, 400 other colleges. If we look at these 3 instruments, we get a pattern, which is basically that we, St. Scholastica, overall are toward the middle of our peer group on all 3 instruments. There are some places where we're way ahead and some where we're below, but as a composite on each one, we're about in the middle of our peer pack, which is fine. I mean, we're doing a good job. But the question is, if we want to take our college from being good to being great, if we say, okay, we're at a point in our history where we've got the enrollment portfolio we need, we're getting most of now the facilities that we need, our reputation's getting spread across the state. And if we want to take this college from being good at what we do to being great and being serious about that, what should we do? I mean, that's sort of the proposition that was put to all 3 groups. Given our mission, what are the most important things, the most important strategic moves that we need to take to move the college from good to great, let's say over the next 5 years? As a result of those 3 groups doing their work, we got the following categories about types of things that we would do. Live the mission, improve the communication, improve student learning, student services, develop human capital, meaning give you the training and the resources that you need as we are able. Enhance corporate connections, that is to say, develop partnerships so that someday Best Buy will drop $50 million on the College of St. Scholastica rather than the University of St. Thomas. But this idea of getting internships for our students in large corporations, sometimes when I or Dell go to a corporation to say, can you help us with our fundraising, can you give us some money for this? Often the first question is, how many of your graduates do we employ? And one of the ways you get graduates employed is to develop corporate partnerships, get some internships, and so on and so on. So this is something that's emerged from a couple of the groups. Differentiate ourselves. I love this one because it came from the President's Leadership Group. Consider resource allocation, which is a kind way of saying cut things that we ought not to be doing anymore. But, put the money where the growth is and maybe begin to throttle back in some areas that are not essential to the mission and whose usefulness is no longer as clear as it once was. So these are the categories of types of actions that came out of the 3 discussions. And then to get a little bit more specific, This has led to the development of our college objectives for next year, and these are important because they essentially tell you where the resources are going to flow. And these are going to be, if they're not already, posted on one of our websites. Lynn, help me out. But just so you can see them here, these are going to be the priorities as we go into next year. Progress on the science initiative, okay? Continue to invest in the online project. Continue to integrate the one college philosophy, and you'll see some of that showing up, for example, in our marketing. We got a Higher Learning Commission visit, North Central visit coming in 12-13. That's a wordy one, but it's a commitment we're making to you right now to decrease the introductory science classes sizes. This is the concept of a one-stop shop so that we can become more efficient in dealing with students. I think there have been some studies done that 80% of students' problems can be addressed by one person, and then you can send the other 20% to visit other people. But let's take care of that 80% by cross-training our staff. Community would be our value next year. We are a more diverse campus. Let's work to be inclusive. Again, the corporate connections. And continue to work with the President's leadership group to address issues that were identified. Let me just say, and I wrote it out so I say it correctly, these objectives show where we think the resources of the school should be channeled, and they help us determine budget priorities and the flow of resources. But we have to keep in mind that the resources in the end are determined by actual enrollments, by actual fundraising results, and by returns on investment. So as we go into next year, we make assumptions about all those areas, and we build a budget, and then the year happens, and those assumptions have to be realized. So obviously, if we fall short somewhere, then even if it's a priority, if we don't have the resources, we can't direct it to that. But as we're looking to next year, these would be our major emphases. And finally, the leadership group has raised a very interesting question, which is, if we're trying to move from good to great, what are our criteria for great? And that, I think, is both a wonderful and a difficult question. And they're meeting next week, and we're going to hear the fruits of their thinking about what the criteria for great are. But I came across Jim Collins, the Good to Great guy, has got a little supplement out now. It's been out for a few years. I hadn't seen it, but Good to Great and the Social Sector, in which he says that he's making a distinction now that moving from good to great in a business organization is a little bit different from moving good to great in the social sector. And he says in business, money is both an input, a resource for achieving greatness, and an output, a measure of greatness. So one of the ways you judge great in business is how profitable are you. In the social sectors, money is only an input and not a measure of greatness. In the social sectors, the critical question is not how much money do we make per dollar of invested capital, but how effectively do we deliver on our mission and make a distinctive impact relative to our resources. And I think that's the question for us as a college community. How effectively do we deliver on our mission, and how distinctive is that mission, and how distinctive is the impact we make? And this is the question I think that we need to take most seriously as we talk about this phrase, moving from good to great. We're doing good work. We have a great mission. How do we continue to deliver on that mission most effectively, change lives, and how distinctive can we make that impact on people? And in that regard, yesterday I got the first email. One of our nursing alums was in contact with a student in Haiti, nursing student whose university collapsed. She survived. Everything is gone, and the request of the alumna was, if I can get her here and provide housing for her, can you finish her education for free? And I sent a couple of emails to folks and got answers within 10 minutes. And the answer is, we're going to work with her, and if there are others with others, I don't know how many, but it's a thing, and yes, we're going to do that. I also had Sister Paracleta stop by yesterday, a nun from Nigeria who's getting ready to go back home. And she was coming to say thank you for, she got a education here, and it was without cost. She lived with the sisters. And she's a nurse now, and she's going back, and her little community in Nigeria works with unwed mothers who are social outcasts, takes their children, puts them up for adoption, takes care of getting the mothers reintegrated on their feet and back into society. And you think, that's what the education's going to do. That's what she's going to do. And if we can take some of these students from Haiti and turn them into professionals and they go back to Haiti, and that's what our work is. That's an example of it, and we should be proud of it, and we should figure out how we can be the very best at doing it, because we can be. And on that note, I know a group from the college is organizing a community-wide benefit concert for Haiti, which is going to be Wednesday, February 3rd, 7 o'clock here in the Mitchell. They're going to have a New York-based Haitian music group, and we're going to do some of our own drum ensemble, and they're going to work with the city and with some other organizations to basically to conduct a fundraiser. And I think that's a good thing. That's an expression to the Duluth community of who we are. So let's keep it up. Did you have any other questions about things I didn't cover or things I did cover? Okay, good to see you. Have a great semester.